There are moments in life when the heart moves in a direction that the mind never planned. A person enters your life quietly, unexpectedly, almost like a whisper from the unconscious, and suddenly you feel something profound, something meaningful, something powerful. Yet at the same time, you sense that this love was never meant to happen. Human beings often believe they control their emotions. We believe that we choose who we love, when we love, and how deeply we allow ourselves to feel. But the deeper truth is that much of our emotional life is guided by forces that lie beneath our conscious awareness. These forces belong to what I call the unconscious. It is a vast landscape of memories, symbols, desires, and archetypes that influence our behavior in ways we do not fully understand. Sometimes the unconscious brings two people together in a way that logic cannot explain. Perhaps the timing is wrong. Perhaps circumstances make the relationship impossible. Perhaps society, family, or commitment stand in the way. Yet the feeling appears anyway, strong and undeniable. When this happens, the individual often feels torn between reason and emotion. You may ask yourself, why did this person enter my life if we were never meant to be together? The answer may not lie in the external world. The answer may lie within the inner world of the psyche. Very often, when we fall deeply in love, we are not only seeing the other person, we are also seeing a reflection of something inside ourselves. In psychology, I have spoken about the concept of projection. Projection occurs when we place parts of our inner world onto another person. We see in them qualities that exist within our own soul, but remain hidden or unrecognized. This is why certain people affect us so strongly. They awaken something that has been sleeping within us for many years. They touch parts of our identity that we did not know existed. And suddenly, being around them feels like discovering a forgotten part of ourselves. When love arrives under impossible circumstances, it often creates a deep psychological conflict. One side of you feels the powerful pull of emotion, connection, and meaning. The other side reminds you of reality, responsibility, and the boundaries that life has placed before you. This conflict can be painful. It can feel like standing between two worlds. Yet within this tension lies an opportunity for growth. In my work, I have often spoken about the process of individuation. Individuation is the journey toward becoming your true self. It requires confronting the hidden parts of the psyche, the contradictions within us, and the emotions we would rather ignore. Unexpected love can become one of the forces that pushes us toward this inner transformation. When someone awakens your heart in a way you did not expect, they often reveal your deepest longings. They show you the qualities you value most: connection, understanding, recognition, emotional depth. Even if the relationship cannot exist in the physical world, the emotional experience itself carries meaning. Many people try to escape such feelings. They tell themselves it was a mistake. They attempt to suppress the memory or pretend that the connection never existed. But the psyche rarely forgets experiences that carry deep emotional significance. Instead, these moments remain within us, shaping our understanding of ourselves and our relationships. The purpose of such love is not always to create a permanent union. Sometimes its purpose is to awaken the soul. You may meet someone who reminds you of who you truly are. Someone who sees you in a way no one else has seen before. Someone whose presence makes you feel alive, understood, and emotionally open. Yet life may place barriers between you that cannot easily be crossed. This does not mean the experience was meaningless. On the contrary, it may be one of the most meaningful encounters of your life. Love that was never supposed to happen often teaches us the most about our own hearts. It reveals our vulnerabilities, our hopes, and our hidden desires. It forces us to confront the difference between what we want and what reality allows. And in doing so, It expands our consciousness. Sometimes the greatest tragedy is not loving someone we cannot have. The greatest tragedy is never allowing ourselves to feel deeply at all. Many people move through life protecting themselves from emotional risk. They avoid vulnerability. They suppress their longing for connection. They choose safety over depth. But the human soul was not designed for emotional numbness. It was designed for experience, transformation, and growth. Even love that cannot be fulfilled still has value. It shows us the depth of our capacity to care. It reminds us that our hearts are capable of profound connection. When you encounter such love, the question is not simply whether the relationship can exist. The deeper question is, what has this experience revealed about you? Perhaps it has shown you what kind of emotional connection you truly desire. Perhaps it has awakened courage within you. Perhaps it has helped you recognize parts of your identity that were previously hidden. In this way, the person who entered your life becomes more than a romantic possibility. They become a mirror for your own inner world. The important task is not to cling desperately to what cannot be, nor is it to deny the feelings that arose. The important task is to understand what the experience means for your own psychological development. Love that was never supposed to happen may still carry a message from the unconscious. It may be inviting you to grow, to change, and to become more aware of your authentic self. And when you understand this, the pain of impossible love begins to transform into wisdom. Because sometimes the people who cannot stay in our lives forever are the very people who help us discover who we truly are. Love sometimes appears in our lives in ways that feel completely unexpected. It enters quietly, often when we believe we are in control of our emotions and circumstances. Many people grow up believing that love follows a logical path, that it will arrive at the right time, with the right person, under the right conditions. We imagine that it will make sense to our families, to society, and to our own plans for life. Yet the deeper truth about human emotions is that love does not always follow logic. It does not ask for permission from circumstances, nor does it wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes love simply appears, almost like a mysterious force, and suddenly we find ourselves feeling deeply connected to someone we never expected to care about. This experience can feel confusing because the mind begins to question what the heart already knows. A person may enter your life in a completely ordinary way. At first there may be nothing special, nothing dramatic, nothing that suggests your emotional world is about to change. But slowly something begins to grow. Conversations become more meaningful. Eye contact lasts a little longer, and there is a strange sense of comfort in their presence. Without realizing it, you begin to think about this person more often than you should. Their words remain in your thoughts long after the conversation ends, and their presence creates a feeling that is difficult to explain. What makes this situation even more powerful is the realization that this love was never planned. Perhaps your life was already moving in a certain direction. Perhaps there were responsibilities, commitments, or expectations that made such a connection seem impossible. Yet emotions do not always respect the boundaries we create for ourselves. The heart recognizes something meaningful, even when the mind insists that it should not. This is why unexpected love often feels so intense. It catches us completely unprepared. When love is anticipated, when we actively search for it, we build emotional defenses. We analyze people carefully and measure our feelings against our expectations. But when love arrives unexpectedly, those defenses are not ready. The emotional experience becomes more powerful because it bypasses our usual control. Many people struggle when this happens because they begin to question themselves. They ask why they feel this way about someone they never intended to love. They wonder if something is wrong with them, or if they have somehow lost control over their emotions. In reality, such experiences reveal something very natural about human psychology. Our emotions are deeply connected to the unconscious parts of our mind. Beneath our conscious decisions and rational thinking, there exists a deeper layer of the psyche that responds to meaning, connection, and recognition. Sometimes when we meet a person who resonates with us, on that deeper level, the unconscious immediately recognizes something important. It may recognize shared values, similar emotional wounds, or complementary qualities that create a powerful psychological bond. Even if the conscious mind does not immediately understand the connection, the emotional response begins to grow. This is why unexpected love can feel almost mysterious. It often feels as though the connection existed long before the two people became aware of it. Being around that person creates a sense of familiarity, as if some deeper part of the soul has already recognized them. Conversations flow easily. Silence feels comfortable, and there is a natural understanding that does not require explanation. However, the unexpected nature of this love also creates tension. The mind begins to remind us of reality. It points to the circumstances that make the relationship complicated or impossible. It lists the reasons why such feelings should not exist. Yet the heart does not easily surrender to logic once it has recognized a meaningful connection. This inner conflict can be emotionally overwhelming. On one side, there is the joy of feeling something real and powerful. On the other side, there is the awareness that life does not always allow every emotional connection to fully unfold. The individual may feel pulled in two directions at once, trying to balance emotional truth with practical reality. Yet even in these difficult moments, unexpected love carries a deep significance. It reminds us that our hearts are capable of feeling beyond the limits of planning and control. It shows us that human connection is not always something we can predict or design. Sometimes the most meaningful emotional experiences arrive precisely when we are not searching for them. In this way, love that appears unexpectedly becomes more than just a romantic feeling. It becomes a moment of awakening. It reveals the depth of our emotional world and reminds us that the human soul is far more complex and mysterious than we often believe. Human beings often believe that their thoughts and decisions guide their emotions, yet the deeper truth of the psyche tells a very different story. Beneath the surface of conscious awareness lies a vast and powerful world known as the unconscious. This hidden part of the mind carries memories, instincts, desires, fears, and emotional patterns that influence our behavior far more than we realize. When it comes to love, the unconscious often speaks louder than logic, louder than reason, and louder than the rules we try to follow in our daily lives. Many people imagine that they choose who they fall in love with through careful observation and rational judgment. They think attraction develops because someone meets certain expectations, matches their lifestyle, or fulfills qualities they believe they need. While these factors can play a role, the deeper emotional connection that we call love often emerges from places far beyond our conscious control. The unconscious mind is constantly interpreting the world through symbols, experiences, and emotional memories that have been stored throughout our lives. When you meet someone who awakens a strong emotional reaction within you, it is rarely a coincidence. Something in that person speaks directly to the deeper layers of your psyche. Perhaps it is the way they think, the tone of their voice, the way they look at the world, or even the emotional energy they carry. These qualities may resonate with parts of your inner self that you have not fully explored or understood. Because the unconscious mind operates silently and invisibly, its influence can feel mysterious. You may find yourself drawn to someone without being able to explain why. There may be no logical reason for the connection, no clear explanation that satisfies the rational mind, yet the emotional pull feels real and undeniable. The more you try to analyze it with pure logic, the more confusing it becomes. This is because the unconscious communicates through feeling rather than reason. It recognizes patterns and emotional truths that the conscious mind cannot easily detect. For example, a person may remind you of emotional experiences from your past, perhaps even from childhood, that shaped your understanding of love, safety, and connection. These memories are often hidden deep within the psyche, but they continue to influence how we respond to people throughout our lives. When the unconscious recognizes something meaningful in another person, it sends powerful emotional signals to the conscious mind. These signals may appear as attraction, curiosity, admiration, or a deep sense of familiarity. You may feel as though you have known the person for much longer than you actually have. Conversations may feel natural and effortless, and their presence may create a sense of comfort that cannot easily be explained. This is one of the reasons why love can sometimes feel irrational. The conscious mind may list many reasons why the relationship should not exist, or why it may be complicated. Yet the unconscious continues to send emotional signals that keep the connection alive. The individual may feel caught between two different forces within themselves. One part seeks logical understanding, while another part responds to a deeper emotional truth. Such internal conflict can create confusion, but it also reveals something important about the nature of human psychology. The mind is not a single, unified voice. It is a complex system made up of many layers, each with its own language and perspective. The conscious mind speaks through reasoning and analysis, while the unconscious speaks through emotion, symbolism, and intuition. When these two parts of the psyche move in different directions, the individual begins to experience inner tension. They may try to ignore their feelings, convincing themselves that logic must take priority. Yet the emotional energy created by the unconscious does not disappear so easily. Instead, it continues to influence thoughts, dreams, and emotional reactions. Love that emerges from the unconscious can therefore feel extremely powerful. It is not simply based on surface-level attraction or temporary excitement. Instead, it touches deeper aspects of identity and emotional history. It may reveal desires that have remained hidden for years or highlight qualities within ourselves that we have not fully recognized. In this sense, love becomes more than just a relationship between two people. It becomes a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious parts of the mind. Through this experience, the individual begins to see how much of their emotional life is guided by forces beneath the surface. Rather than viewing this as a loss of control, it can be understood as an invitation to explore the deeper layers of the self. The unconscious is not an enemy of reason. It is a source of psychological wisdom that carries the emotional truths of our lives. When love arises from that hidden place within the psyche, it reminds us that human connection is far more profound and mysterious than logic alone can ever explain. There are moments in life when a person enters our world and awakens emotions we did not expect to feel. These moments often occur under circumstances that make the connection complicated or even impossible. When this happens, the individual experiences something that can be described as forbidden or complicated love. It is not forbidden in the sense of wrongdoing alone, but in the sense that life itself has created barriers around the connection. These barriers may be social expectations, personal responsibilities, timing, distance, or commitments that cannot easily be changed. Yet despite these obstacles, the emotional bond continues to exist. Such experiences often create deep psychological tension within the human mind. On one side, there is the powerful emotional attraction that draws two people closer together. On the other side, there is the awareness that circumstances make the relationship difficult or unrealistic. This conflict between emotion and reality can feel overwhelming. People may struggle to understand why they feel so strongly about someone they believe they should not love. They may try to suppress their emotions, hoping that logic will eventually overcome the feeling. However, the human psyche rarely works in such a simple way. When love appears in complicated circumstances, it often touches parts of our personality that have remained hidden. These hidden aspects of the self are sometimes referred to as the shadow. The shadow contains qualities, desires, and emotions that we do not fully accept or express in our daily lives. Many individuals spend years building a social identity that reflects what they believe they should be. They follow expectations, fulfill roles, and present themselves to the world in ways that feel safe and acceptable. But beneath that carefully constructed identity lies a deeper self that carries unexplored emotions and unrealized possibilities. When we encounter someone who awakens forbidden or complicated love, that person may be activating these hidden aspects of our personality. They may represent qualities that our conscious identity has ignored or suppressed for many years. For example, a person who has always lived according to strict rules may suddenly feel drawn to someone who represents freedom and emotional openness. Another individual who has spent years prioritizing responsibility over personal desire may meet someone who reminds them of the passion and spontaneity they once possessed. In such cases, the attraction is not only about the other person. It is also about the parts of ourselves that are reflected through them. This is why complicated love can feel so intense. It does not merely involve affection or attraction. It becomes a mirror that reflects hidden aspects of our own identity. The person we are drawn to may symbolize qualities that our soul has been longing to rediscover. Being around them may create a sense of emotional awakening, as if parts of the self that were once dormant are beginning to come alive again. At the same time, the difficulty of the situation forces us to confront important questions about our values and priorities. The mind begins to examine the difference between desire and responsibility. It asks whether emotional truth should always be followed or whether certain boundaries must remain in place. This internal dialogue can lead to deep self-reflection. Through this process, individuals often begin to understand themselves more clearly. They recognize their emotional needs, their fears, and the ways in which they have shaped their identity around external expectations. The experience of complicated love may challenge those expectations and reveal how much of our behavior has been guided by social norms rather than inner truth. This does not mean that every forbidden connection should be pursued or that every emotional impulse should be followed without thought. Rather, the psychological significance lies in what the experience reveals about the self. Even if the relationship cannot exist in reality, the emotional response itself carries meaning. It may reveal a desire for deeper connection, authenticity, or emotional expression. It may show that the individual has been living in a way that ignores important aspects of their personality. By confronting these realizations, the person begins to develop greater self-awareness. In this sense, complicated love becomes part of the journey toward psychological growth. It exposes the hidden dynamics of the psyche and forces the individual to confront the tension between who they believe they are and who they might become. Through this confrontation, the human being moves closer to understanding the true complexity of their own soul. There are moments in life when a person enters your world and awakens emotions that feel deeper than ordinary attraction. The connection feels powerful, almost mysterious, and it creates a sense that something meaningful is unfolding. Yet very often, what we believe we see in the other person is not entirely about them. Much of the intensity we feel in love comes from a psychological process that takes place within our own minds. This process is known as projection, and it plays a significant role in how human beings experience deep emotional connections. Projection occurs when we unconsciously place parts of our inner world onto another person. Instead of recognizing these qualities as existing within ourselves, we begin to see them reflected in someone else. This is not a deliberate action. It happens quietly within the unconscious mind. When we meet someone who seems to embody certain traits that resonate with us emotionally, our psyche may begin to project hidden desires, ideals, and emotional needs onto that person. This is one of the reasons why love can sometimes feel magical or overwhelming. The individual we are drawn to appears to possess everything we have been searching for. They seem to understand us in a way others do not. Their presence creates a feeling of completeness, as though they hold something essential that has been missing from our lives. Yet in many cases, the powerful emotions we experience are connected not only to who that person truly is, but also to the psychological images we have unconsciously placed upon them. Every human being carries within their psyche certain inner archetypes that shape how they experience relationships. These archetypes are universal patterns of the human mind that influence how we perceive others. For example, a man may unconsciously carry an inner image of the feminine within his psyche, often referred to as the anima. A woman may carry an inner image of the masculine, known as the animus. These inner figures represent qualities, emotions, and energies that exist within the individual, but may not yet be fully recognized. When a person meets someone who seems to match the image of their inner archetype, the unconscious mind responds with powerful attraction. The individual feels as though they have finally encountered someone who completes them or understands them on a profound level. What is actually happening, however, is that the other person is activating a deep psychological pattern within the psyche. This does not mean the connection is false or meaningless. On the contrary, it reveals something extremely important about the inner world of the individual. The qualities we project onto others often represent aspects of ourselves that are waiting to be discovered or developed. When we see beauty, strength, wisdom, or emotional depth in another person, we may also be encountering those same potentials within our own personality. Because of this, love can become a powerful mirror of self-discovery. The person we are drawn to reflects qualities that resonate deeply with our own inner nature. Being near them can feel inspiring because they awaken parts of our personality that have remained hidden or underdeveloped. However, projection can also create confusion. When we project too strongly onto another person, we may begin to see them not as they truly are, but as the image we have created in our minds. We may believe they are perfect or uniquely destined for us, even though we do not yet fully understand their real character. Over time, as the relationship develops, the projection may begin to fade, and the individual may start to see the other person more realistically. This process can feel disappointing at first, but it is actually an important step in psychological growth. When projection dissolves, we begin to reclaim the qualities we once believed existed only in the other person. We realize that the admiration we felt was also a reflection of our own potential. In relationships where circumstances make love difficult or impossible, projection can play an even stronger role. Because the connection cannot fully develop in reality, the imagination may continue to build powerful emotional images around the person. The mind fills the empty space with dreams, hopes, and symbolic meaning. Yet even in these situations, the experience carries deep psychological value. It shows us what our hearts are searching for and what qualities we long to express in our own lives. The person who awakened those feelings becomes a symbol of something important within our inner world. Through recognizing projection, we begin to understand that love is not only about finding someone outside ourselves. It is also about discovering the hidden dimensions of our own psyche. The connection we feel with another person becomes a doorway that leads us toward greater awareness of who we truly are. There are moments in life when the human heart finds itself caught between two powerful forces. One force is emotion, the deep and undeniable feeling that draws us toward another person. The other force is duty, the responsibilities, commitments, and realities that shape our lives. When these two forces collide, a profound inner conflict begins to form. A person may feel a strong emotional bond with someone, yet at the same time recognize that circumstances do not allow the relationship to unfold in a simple or natural way. This tension between what we feel and what we believe we must do can create a powerful psychological struggle. Human beings are not guided only by their desires. We also live within structures of responsibility, promises, and expectations that define our roles in the world. Society, family, personal commitments, and moral values all influence how we make decisions about our relationships. These structures provide stability and meaning, but they can also create moments when our emotional truth does not align with the life we have built. When love appears in such a situation, the individual may feel divided within themselves. One part of the mind is pulled toward the emotional connection, feeling the excitement, warmth, and understanding that comes from being close to someone who resonates deeply with the soul. Another part of the mind steps back and evaluates the reality of the situation. It reminds the individual of obligations that cannot easily be ignored. It points out the consequences that might arise if emotion were allowed to take full control. This internal division can be deeply unsettling. People may question their own character, wondering why they feel drawn to someone when they already have responsibilities elsewhere. They may attempt to suppress their emotions in order to maintain stability in their lives. Yet emotions that arise from the deeper layers of the psyche rarely disappear simply because we decide they should. The tension created by this conflict often leads to intense self-reflection. The individual begins to examine their own values, priorities, and identity. They ask themselves difficult questions about what truly matters in their lives. Should a person always follow their emotional truth, even if it disrupts the structures they have built? Or should responsibility and commitment remain the guiding principles of their decisions?